What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and we are back on Story Time. And I am back with Tony Farina, the excellent friend of the show and author and wonderful all-round person. Tony, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm very well. I'm very excited about this. I just got a message from our friend. I'm going to do this live from our friend Rhea Kerrigan, whose favorite movie is the 1982 version of what we're going to do. And she actually just sent a message. Breaking news. She finds the first movie quite boring.
Well, yeah, no, I spoke to Rhea. Me and Rhea came on the show a while ago.
I know she did. Yeah.
And we talked about it. And and in that show, we were like, oh, there's a short story, and we'd never read it. And then obviously we never got around to the 2011. So yeah, no, Rhea, I know Rhea's a big fan. So I'll be interested to see if my opinions have changed. You know, maybe I'm going to turn out and be like, yeah, the thing 1982 is garbage.
Right. You're not going to say that.
No, I'm not.
We can all agree. Even the people who made the 2011 one, they were like, we're not going to I think the line was, we don't want to remake it because that would be like painting a mustache on the Mona Lisa. So why would you? So it's like, that's exactly correct.
Yes. 100%.
Which we'll discuss. So yes, I'm feeling great. I'm excited. This has been it's been a little bit of a break for us since we talked about Julian's third
Recall
breast. But this is a big one. We've got a short story and 3 movies.
Yes. We'll get through them. We will. We're doing it in The Thing, which is better known as Who Goes There from 1938. And there's some things obviously I want to talk about because it is 1938.
I know. We've got some things to say. I've got notes.
There's some historical bits in there. Then it was obviously made into The Thing from Another World, 1951. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. And then a prequel was made in 2011. The only element that is a prequel is like the post-credit scene, but we'll get to that.
I've got thoughts.
Yes, we'll go through them all. And
what a waste of Ramona Flowers is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's an odd film.
That's a nice way to say it. Yes, it's a nice way to say. Did we need that?
Yeah,
we'll find out.
It was part of my March flop watch as well, so I
nice.
That. Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Anyway, but let's go back to the very beginning. Who Goes There, 1938, written by John W. Campbell Jr. And this is it is a short story. I mean, it's about 50.
Yeah, it's technically listed as a novella. I think it just depends on how it was published and how you had it in your hands. It's in Our Real Future collection.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider it a short story, but I understand because I think they published it. It was just long enough with the right font, and if you squint, you could make it 52 pages or whatever. Right. So you could publish it as a novella. So that's smart.
Double space between the chapters.
Right. Right.
Yes. But yeah, it's in the book. It is as you would expect. This is we're not too far away from it. It is obviously set in Antarctica. And this is a research exhibition with over 30 people, possibly I think sort of close to 38, 39 people on the site. And it starts with them having found a spacecraft and an alien trapped in ice.
Yep.
And then it goes from there. And it's basically sort of like, yes, the alien in this is in the ice, thaws out, escapes. And then we find out that the alien that was trapped in the ice was not an alien, or it was an alien, but it's not the alien that they think it is. It was something that has been taken over by this other organism, the Thing, which then takes over both the dogs and the cattle, and then people on the camp as it starts to look for ways to escape. There are elements in this story that I know we're going to know characters such as Blair and other characters that we recognise from the 1982 version. But let's focus on the story. What are your thoughts then? Let's jump in then, Tony. What are your thoughts on the story?
Well, it's funny because we were just talking offline about how things are of their time. And so I wrote, that's in my notes. Like, this is 1938. So, and like you said, it's to me, and this is me Ricci, but the literature professor in me says this is a commentary on Nazism.
Nazism pops into my head, but I felt like it's definitely an American fear.
Yes, because in 1938, America is very like, just like we didn't get involved in World War I until the end. We came in and knocked people out and then rifled through their pockets. Like, that's it. We came in after the bar fight was over and like, good job, good on ya. Let's take some money and then let's make Iraq for no good reason. And then in World War II, we do the same thing. I mean, World War II, we were much more active participants, but we let you guys do all the work for a really long time. But there was this fear. So there's this overwhelming fear, this underlying fear of, because like you just said, you think it's one thing, but it's really something else. And so to me, there's this commentary on that. It's like a fear of that. Like anybody who's read a book, like right now, the person who's rerunning for president in my country, who is the former president of my country, is openly a fascist. That's just a period. He says fascist things. He quotes Mein Kampf. He's a fascist. Okay. When his biggest supporter in the world, Sean Hannity's like, you're not going to be a dictator. He's like, just for one day, I'll be a dictator.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's too many days.
Dictator day.
That's too many days. So like, that's a problem. So, and like when you go back, Sinclair Lewis wrote a book called It Can't Happen Here that explicitly explains this. And he wrote that that was this. Like, this reminds me of that, right? This deals with it in a science fiction way, so it's a little more allegorical, whereas like Sinclair Lewis is like, this is it. Yeah. This is exactly what's going to happen to the world if you let Hitler go on. Because, of course, Chamberlain, wanted to be like, it's fine, right? And it's fine. And the king was like, it's fine. And then luckily he wanted to bang the hot actress and everything was better from that, right? So good for him for not being able. He was also an awful Nazi. So all of that to say, this is that. This is somebody who's paid attention to global politics. And like, Hitler's not the guy you think he is, right? And we know that Ford loved Hitler. Like, so like, there's a very Lindbergh is a huge Nazi. There's this stuff.
It's not so much the Nazis. I think one of the things to highlight is about this is almost not so much the apologist nature of the time, because that did exist. Yeah. But there was this sense of post World War I in Europe. When Hitler sort of came to power, there was this idea of, oh, good, they're getting their shit together. There was a sense of like, oh, the strong leader, they're going to get that was it. And I think that's where you get people in America and other parts of the world looking and going, cool, we haven't got to worry about that anymore. They're going to just get their shit together. Like, that was it. We're not so worried about that. They keep it, it's that thing of like, keep it in your hangar. We're not so worried what you do. If it spreads out the hangar, you got a problem. But that was very much it. And I think that this is exactly what this story is about, is the creeping concern of it sort of like changing shape in other places. Like I say, I mean, if this was released in the 50s, this is a communist story. That's this kind of thing. This is a Red Scare,
which we will probably talk about.
Which we will talk about, yeah. But and that's it is definitely in there, that idea. And there's a story at the there's a note at the end. There's a character. It's not Clark, who basically at one point sort of sequesters himself off and starts praying. No, the one who starts praying and singing hymns and all this other stuff. And they're like, oh, he's just, they get really annoyed with him, where they're just like, he just won't stop. He keeps talking, he keeps going off on one. And at the end of it, you find out that he's actually been infected. And there's a great line. I'm not going to quote all of them, but there's one where they say like how they can act too. This thing has spent hours praying to a god it hates. Right. And you're like, what? That seems a real sort of kind of thing. And then, but singing hymns, it doesn't believe or understand. And it's this idea of like it taking on the form of something and you sort of understand, but then it under the skin, it's something different, and it's sort of corrupting the things that you know.
Right.
So that is definitely, I like that is in there.
It just feels very. It feels very like a warning. I think good science fiction is always a warning of something, right? It's commenting on something. And so and you know, there is still this idea of space, like exploration, and like, what does it mean? And you're like, why the fuck are we in Antarctica at all? Like, what are we doing there? Why are humans there? We're there because we can be there. And so there's also that commentary on like humans being places they shouldn't belong for one of two reasons. It's like either exploration or exploitation. And I think there's a commentary there too, like, why do we go to the moon? Cause. Why did we climb Mount Everest? Cause. The people who do it at first, it's like, cause, right. And now it's like, cause there's oil, cause there's water, cause there's whatever. There's like a thing that we can get. So I do think he's commenting on that stuff too. And it's also just a really cool horror story, like body horror. Like, you know, so there's like multi-layer. It's just really, this was my first time reading it for this project. I've read it several times in preparation, but like, I feel it's really good. I get why people were like, "Oh, let's continue to tell this story."
Yeah, one of the things you say about those different reasons. One of the things I like about this is, like you say, is of its time, but there is the sense of environmental exploitation is probably underlying, but it's not wholly there, because they're there to do sort of like studies. They are scientific. They're there to sort of, you know, they're doing magnetic tests and all this other stuff, and which is why they end up finding the ship. And that sort of thing. So there's all these elements, like you say, that are really good, and they're there, and sort of one of the things I find most interesting is you say of its time is the characters, and how sort of this is reflected in the 50s one as well, which we'll get to. That there's kind of like, even when the tension's high, and it's like there's some really good tension in this, there's still kind of like banter,
right?
There's no sort of sense of like real urgency, like in this. You know, I think Carpenter ratchets that up, the paranoia and stuff. There is paranoia and there's concern in this, but it's still relatively calm. Like, they talk about dismantling the plane, taking the sort of bits out the tractors and all this other stuff, and they're kind of like, it's almost dismissive or flippant in the way it's like, well, we've done all this, but it could still become an albatross.
Right. Well, that albatross at the end is the most tense part of it.
Yes.
Right. Because you're like, oh, shit, if it gets in there, because albatross, we know, can fly forever. They can be in the cold.
Yeah.
We're fucked. Dutton is the guy.
Dutton. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just sort of, it makes me chuckle that there is that sort of like, there's a couple of jokes, not so much jokes, but it's like banter. They're like, you get that the characters know each other when they're fine with each other, but like, even after they've killed people, they're still sort of like, you know, there's still humor. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel like, you know, this.
Well, I would say though, and that will be something, because that's in my notes for the 2011 one, and I know we'll get there when we get there, but what it's missing is that. And that what the other two versions, the 51 and the 82 version, do is they give you a sense of character. They give you offhanded conversations. They give you shorthand. They're like, oh, back in my and they do that kind of thing. And you're like, oh, these guys know each other. And that comes, and I was surprised to see how much of that was present here in this. And what you said is there's 37 people on this thing, but like, that's too many. But I guess the point is, well, there's got to be people. There's always got to be stormtroopers. There's got to be worker bees. There's got to be people over here who aren't necessarily involved in the story. So I guess that made it a little more realistic. You're like, you're not going to run a whole Antarctica thing with 15 people. You're going to need somebody in the background. Somebody has to be sleeping during all of this. So, okay, that's fine. It's fine. But I do think that's what he does really well. And I think that is why it works, is because of that banter, because he does a good job of trying to get us to, and again, it doesn't always work, because you're like, really? This is some bad timing. But at least you get a sense that they're people.
Yeah.
He really grounds them, and so that people could read it and be like, and that's like when we talk about the lottery, you get a sense that those are people who have a whole experience. Oh, last year, whatever, and you know, like they have those little throwaway lines. I mean, the greatest short story writer in the history of the world. So of course she's X, but it's like he does that. Like he does do some really, really good character work.
I agree with that, and I think especially because the man mountain that is MacReady that sort of steps onto the page, like the guy's 6'4", big bushy ginger beard, like, you know, it's Jack
golden. Yeah, they're always talking about how he's just this
He's
big
basically
monster.
he's Doc Savage with a beard. Like this is Jack
That's
Reacher
it.
with a beard. Like this is he's
True.
bronze. He actually describes him as
Bronze.
bronze.
That's it. They do.
And I
Yeah.
and I was like, I checked. I was like, well, this is the peak of the Doc Savage era. Like this is where the pulps were coming. And he's but however, you sort of forget all that, and it's mentioned a couple of times his size and his power. He's how strong he is. But he is still some of his dialogues is like I say very relatable at times. He's a little bit of a what's the male version of a Mary Sue? I don't know what would be the
I
answer.
don't know that there is one, but there needs to be one. He is that. Yeah, because
yeah.
he's a meteorologist who also almost was a doctor. He
Yes,
got
exactly, 100%.
This far in medical school and was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be a meteorologist instead. Really?
Mm.
That's a lot of science that you're good at. Okay.
Yeah. He's a Marty Jeff. That's what he is. That's what I'm going to throw it now. He's a Marty Jeff. But that's it. Like he's able to do everything. Like he remains, and to the extent where you're like, why are you not in charge of this camp? Why is Gary in charge of this camp? Like
fucking Gary.
Yeah, fucking Gary.
Oh.
But yeah, apart from that though, I like the relationship that builds between these things. The other thing though that I want to just highlight that Campbell does incredibly well is give this place a tactile nature. Like I know, I have a picture in my head of how this place looks, how it is structured, and more than anything, how it smells.
Oh man, that is really good, and that is really smart because you're trying to immerse the reader, and like that is the thing that garners the most memory, right? People say that the sense of smell, like you remember the smell of your grandma's kitchen when she was making your favorite thing, or you remember a really terrible odor when something bad happens. And so I like that he really leaned into it. I wonder if he smelled all those things and he was like, this is what it smells like, or he was just making it up. But boy, sometimes your mouth watered in a bad way.
Yeah.
You're like,
it's just the first sentence of the opener is just 3 words, and it's just the place stank.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant sort of like it's just this thing of like all the different smells that make up this place, like the fish oil, the actual oil, the dogs, everything that's there, the wet, everything's just wet.
Because it's thawing, so it's at the end, like right. So that's part of it too, is that, and we've all been there. Like if you live somewhere cold or have lived somewhere cold, and you go out in the snow, and when you come in and your boots are sitting by the door, they're bad. They're ripe the next day, even if you weren't super sweaty. Just because they're sweaty boots, just wet boots. Yeah. So he does a good job with that. I think that's smart.
You recognize that this place is under. The other thing I should say is it's underground. Right. It's dug into the ice and other stuff. So it's claustrophobic. It's sort of like it works really, really well. But he respects and admires the environment, because you get the throughout the book or throughout the story. For me, like everything that's inside is like claustrophobic. It's trapped. They talk about sort of there's the ad building, there's the where the canteen is, and there's the shack where Blair is sort of stored off, and there's a couple of other bits. But it's for 30 plus people. Like it's small. Right? This thing is cramped, and like there's a joke where like one of them says, because they're having to watch each other, they break into fours so they can watch each other, see who's acting weird. And one of them makes a joke and was like, next I'm expecting Gary to tell us to start sharing bunks 4 apiece. And he's like, it's like I haven't got any privacy now that's going to happen. So you get that like these guys are on top of each other.
Well, and that is funny. That line made me laugh too, because one of my former students years ago was a retired Navy man, and he was using his GI Bill to come back to school, and he was in the sub, and so that is how subs are: 3 men to a bunk, and so you share a bed. Somebody's always sleeping in your bed, so 3 men, and he was
Shifts.
old enough that there were only men in the sub at the time. Yeah. So you're awake for 8, you're working for 8, you're sleeping for 8.
Yeah.
And when your 8 is up, somebody else is coming in to sleep in the bunk. And that was it. So that was how they could have so many people. So like you get 8 hours of off time, but you can't be in your bed during your off time because somebody's sleeping there. So that made me think like that is actually how they did that. So like he had a sense of like, they're like, you think this is bad? Imagine what it'd be like to be trapped in one of those death machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad
but that's
news.
it. But the to contradict that, like the opposite side of that, everything that's outside, like when he sort of describes the environment, like it's harsh, but it's beautiful. Like he describes it, like the snow drifts, and there's a beautiful thing towards it. And you said about the it's the Thor, like it's come to spring. Because at
Yeah.
the start, as the sun's gone down, and the sun's sort of like, he says it's 2 meters or 2 miles behind the horizon, but there's like it's casting small rainbows through the glistening snow, and he's like, naturally this place is beautiful, like it's a stunning place, but there's this shithole in the middle of it all that people have got to live in.
Yeah.
So I feel
Well, and
tactile with this whole thing.
right, it is, and that's the thing too. Is what did they think it's 20 million years?
Yeah.
Is that what they think, that the thing has been, that the aliens have been trapped there? Which again, like I guess scientifically that would make sense if they landed there and it wasn't snow yet, but they crashed and it flew, whatever. But I like that idea too. Is that again, if the humans didn't show up here, they would stay trapped forever. Yeah. But like we come in and fuck everything up because that's what we do.
That's what we do. As always.
This beautiful, pristine place.
Yeah.
Let's dig an underground hotel here and put a bunch of stanky men. Fun.
But again, like you said, the story's great. I think, the thing I was surprised about, and I want to sort of make a connection because it's 1938 and stuff. There's a couple of things I want to sort of point out quickly. Because I'd seen the 1951 and I'd obviously seen 1982 and now sort of fully caught up with 2011 and stuff. And I was going, okay, the whole thing with like the tentacles and the sort of like the body horror and the thing splitting open. I was like, that must have that's a Carpenter thing. Like, I feel that's a Carpenter thing. That feels like modern body horror, Carpenter, Cronenberg, that kind of thing. Having seen the 51 version, I'm like, oh, I'm assuming that it's closer to that. Oh, no, this book is full on body horror, like tentacles, body changing, things ripping open. Like, this is like, not visceral. It is kind of visceral, actually.
I think it is a pretty ahead of it because again, they try, and the thing is they start like he's smart enough to start by like he's got 3 red eyes, and it's like simple stuff that your brain can catch up to.
Yeah,
and I think it's well done that you start with that. You start with essentially the 51 version, right? And then you slowly move into this other thing, and I think that's the thing, literally. And that word is in there. That it's called Who Goes There, but the thing is in there, and it's in italics, and it is the thing. That is no messing around. That's why they're all called that, because he says that word a billion times. But that's it, though, because there's no other word for it. Like, there's not a phrase you can use because it starts as just like, oh, it's got these 3 eyes and it looks like this. But then, is it changes, is it morphs, and it does this weird thing like. When it takes over Dutton or Conan or whichever one it takes over first, because they're both things. The reason that it takes over the dog is because it's like got extra, and so it's like literally like ripping itself to become another thing.
Yes.
It's like, well, it's got 90 extra pounds or kilos or whatever they say, so it needed to be this dog, and so it's just like this pile of goo that's sort of sucking this thing up. Yeah, it is really. Again, I was with you. I was shocked at how much I was like, "Oh wow, Cronenberg's." This is what his parents read to him at night.
Yeah, this was his bedtime story. Yeah, night, David. I'm off to read. I'm off to read the thing. Yeah.
That's what it felt like, though, right? I mean, I said body horror, and you said it too. It is very Cronenberg, and obviously he and Carpenter, they are cut from the same oeuvre. But this makes sense.
Oh yeah,
I was really surprised. 1938, pretty graphic.
Yes. Oh, there's descriptions of, like you say, it's sort of like. But one of the things that's different, I think, that I like in this one is it gets into these assumptions. I mean, it's all assumptions. You have the sort of like the doctors, and one of the things that's in this is sort of like science versus, and this is throughout a lot of them, is like science versus common sense almost.
I know. There's one person and everything is like, don't hurt it. We have to study it.
Yeah.
It's eating us.
Yeah. It's evil.
Literally eating us. Yeah.
And so there's always that, like people going like, well, we have to study it and understand it. This is a great opportunity. And you go, and others going, no, we do not have the facilities here. This is insane. But one of the things I forgot the point I was going to make on that then.
Sorry.
No, we've gone off on a tangent. But yeah, the things I was going to mention is, oh, that was it. In this one, they make the assumption that they clear out when they get to the test at the end, and we'll talk about that. We'll quickly touch on that. That every individual piece is an individual piece. So as it overtakes and stuff, like you could cut off a hand, and that hand becomes an individual piece. You could
right.
But and so when they talk about that, though, they also say that it's got like a memory. That there's a memory of the things that it has copied previously.
Right.
And so at the end, one of the characters, instead of sort of like just splitting open, I think it's Kinner, when they attack him and stuff, it says like it basically starts to replicate the alien that they found. Like it says he has like a third eye growing, that it's got red sharp razor claws and sort of stuff. And so it's not just ripping open and becoming like flapping tentacles. Like it has the ability to morph and sort of like reconfigure what it's copying into what it can remember to the best of its ability. And that was brilliant as well to me. I was like, oh, that's an idea that's not been explored in any of the movies, but that's an idea that I thought was really cool, that like it has this almost like a blueprint memory of the things that it was previously, like the things it's overtaken previously, which was really cool.
And that makes it survival of the fittest. It's
Yes.
like, okay, well, this isn't working. And so that goes back to what you were saying, is like, these things aren't working. The dog's not working. This isn't working. They figured out this, whatever. Well, if I go back to being the alien, when I was just the dead alien, they were like, let's save it.
Yeah.
So maybe if I become that again, and it really truly is survival of the fittest. And there's also then again, going back to like you're like, well, they're hiding in plain sight kind of things, you know, with the idea of the Nazism and everything else. It's like, well, they're doing the thing with, you know, like Trump does the crimes out loud.
Yeah.
Which is why he doesn't go to jail for them, because he's not trying to hide them. So you're like, well, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And so he's just standing in front of me doing crime. I don't know how to handle that, because criminals try to hide it. But he's
we're not used to how to processing that.
Right. And so it's like that, right? It's like that. It's like this. And that is to me, that was, you know, the sense that I have, this 38. It's this pre-World War II, but obviously Nazism's on the rise. Hitler's there, Mussolini's there. These things are happening. There's real threats, but they're doing it in public. Like they're not hiding. Like Hitler was elected. The fucking Olympics were there. Like this is a real thing.
This year, 38. So it happened in 38.
So there it is. It's all happening right there. And so like you're saying, like this is happening in front of you. And so it's morphing back to this other evil. Like you don't like this. You're like, oh shit, we're scared. It's body horror, whatever. It's blah, we're running, try to kill it. And so it knows, oh, well, if I just go back to this other thing that you accepted, then you'll let me get away with whatever. And maybe you'll take me out of here.
Yeah.
You know, but that goes back to what you're saying, is having that memory of it being
what it can use.
Yeah,
what can
evil
it use?
doesn't mean stupid.
No, and they say that there's a sort of suggestion of that. They're like, you know, no, this thing has survived. Like it's adaptable. That's the point.
Yeah.
The other thing as well, with regards to this is and it's sort of the era is this is cosmic horror, right? This story is most definitely cosmic horror. And one of the things that they mention is when they found when they find the spacecraft, they camp with it for 12 days because they've got to dig out the craft and they've got to dig out the aliens and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't go hugely well. The ship gets sort of like hidden below ice again, but they get this alien. But whilst they are there, they have dreams,
right,
of this alien and this other thing. And there's this great sort of description later on saying they assume that it's psychic, but it's also that it's pushing out its dreams to people around it and all this other stuff, which I thought was a great sort of idea. But this idea of it being in the Antarctic and this thing being there for millions of years, and then it calling out and stuff, I was like, okay, well, this is almost like a combination of At the Mountains of Madness and the Call of Cthulhu. So I was like, you know, this thing is, and I'm not saying he's ripping off shit at Lovecraft in any way, but like this definitely has Lovecraftian elements but he's sort of making them a bit more, you know, I think he's taken them to the next further. There's an allegory to it, but there's also, I would say that Campbell is a fan of Lovecraft. No doubt.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's because the creepy tentacles and all this stuff. Sure. I mean, you're gonna 100%, and that's okay. It's okay but like you said, because it's more cosmic as opposed to otherworldly.
Yes.
Or below the earth, kind of of earth of another time, like wherever you think the Lovecraftian monsters come from, they're earthbound.
Well, some of them they come from space millions of years ago, like, you know, the original.
Right, but they're here.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think this is already here too. We didn't see it land, although in the 1982 film you see it.
Yes, you see. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, yeah, didn't think about that. Yes. Anyway, we'll start to move because we're sort of blasting through time. But this is the story's great. I think I was really
I'm
impressed.
glad we did it. No, it's excellent, and I understand how it literally spawned 3 film adaptations. I mean, that's something spectacular to be that good. And the first one we did on this, you know, The Racer, how many versions of Death Race have there been? Because it's an interesting story.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
one
how
of the
many good
things.
versions of Death Race are there? That's a different conversation. Same with the Thing, right? We'll see.
Well, we're obviously reading, we're taking these from Real Future, which I think is, is
Yeah.
going to be a holding on to for future. But one of the things I was kind of curious about, I looked into, I was like, okay, how many times has this story, Who Goes There, been republished? Like, could I find this in other collections? No, it's really kind of tough to track down. Like, you can read it online, it's there available online and stuff, but like, for talking about Lovecraft and stuff, like you can find umpteen
Everywhere.
republishings of
Yeah.
bloody stuff, and I'm not going to complain, but stuff's like this where I'm going like, this is a really good story. Why isn't this in like multiple short story
collections? I don't
Yeah.
have a good answer. The only thing I can think is that it's just like, because the new movie, the book has been, but again, but there should be other editions of it, but because the book has been, they've discovered that it's a full novel and that got published and everything. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that somebody bought the copyright back.
Maybe,
But
maybe.
between
still.
then and now, between 1938 and 2018, it should have been published a bunch of times.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I'm kind of surprised that there's not collections of this, sci-fi collections that have this story in it. It's kind of baffling. Sounds like it's been lost a little bit. Anyway, we jump forward to 1951 and the Thing from Another World.
Which I will admit I didn't know wasn't directed by Howard Hawks until this watching. In my mind, I always just think,
Howard Hawks movie.
Carpenter's the Thing, it's Hawks the Thing. That's how I think of it. But it's Christian Nyby is technically the director of this film, but I honestly, I don't know who that is. Well, like you say, Hawk, I'm like, oh, I know who Howard Hawks is.
Well, Howard Hawks, uncredited as director and uncredited as writer. So it's one of those. It's like Steven Spielberg on Poltergeist. We all know he did it. We all know he did it, but he's not credited.
Tobey Hubert got the... Okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, yeah, it's funny, though. I honestly didn't know that. Because in my mind, I'm like, there's the Hawks version and there's the Carpenter version. That's what my brain says. And I was like, oh, there's this other guy. Who's this guy?
Yeah. Well, let's poor Nyby. We'll give him, we'll consider him later. But this one's an interesting one because this is 1951. This is obviously they are limited by the time period special effects and also censorship. I don't think there's obviously in 51 you couldn't get away with some of the stuff that's in the story.
True.
So this is a lot more straightforward in that you have an Arctic expedition and a series of sort of like the military on an outpost, and they travel out there after hearing they found something, and they have to go and they take a newspaperman, Scotty, with them, who may well be my favorite character in this. Not just of his name, just because he's like the naysayer. Like, throughout the whole thing, he's like, "You're idiots." This is it. And he's brilliant.
He's having fun. And 1951, top billing, Margaret Sheridan. Top billing was a woman.
Yes. Oh,
amazing.
We'll definitely talk about the female sort of position in this film. It's interesting. But yeah, they get there. They find the ship. They talk about magnetism, and they talk about why they can. Well, it's Geiger counters. They got all that sort of thing. Radiation. So they find the ship. And again, very much like in the story, they use thermite charges, but they can't get the ship out. They may have in fact destroyed the ship, which is...
They 100% did.
Yeah. And again, the newspaperman sort of like... Yeah, I love the fact that the reporter calls them out for that. He's like, there's not many people that find and destroy proof of alien existence in one day. Like, well done.
One day. I don't... Yeah. I mean, talk about... There's never been a more cinematic version of that escalated quickly than this film.
Yes. Yeah.
They are in a hurry, and they're like, we found a thing. We better fly up there. Bring the newspaper man. Let's go. And there's like a little bit like they land. This is where the characterization comes in. That's where I think having Margaret Sheridan as Nikki, and there's a couple of other women in there, but she's obviously the main squeeze of the captain, and they have this, but she's very like, he wants to marry her, and she's like, I don't want any part of that. Like, I've got this life, I've got this job, I've got this whole thing. Like, who are you, flyboy? Like, I'm okay. Like, I don't need you. And I really love that. And like, you get a sense of who they are, and there's all this really cool stuff. And so like you're spending, 15 minutes getting to know characters, and then it's like, okay, well, that's it. Now shit's got to go down. So yeah, we're going to find it. We're going to dig it up. We're going to blow it up. We're going to bring back that thing. And like, well, holy shit.
Oh yeah,
this is amazing.
The first half hour of this film is very quick. I mean, the film itself is an hour and a half. Like it's 90 minutes sort of long. And it flies. It really does go at a pace. And then, like you say, the thing is, this film is sort of like a litany of military cock-ups, like incompetence throughout.
That's so true.
That's what it seems to be. Like you say, they blow up the spaceship and they're all like, thermite charges are the right thing to do. And you're like, and even part of the group are going like, no, that's not the right thing to do.
It's not going anywhere. It's that we found it.
Yeah.
We can stick a flag in the ice.
Yeah,
We can leave
come back
somebody out
later.
here in a truck. We're
Yeah.
not going to lose it.
No.
Maybe don't blow it up. Maybe don't. Maybe
Yeah.
don't do that. They're like, well, we can't get it out any other way.
Yeah.
Right now, what about let's go home and give it a think.
We have drills, we have picks, like these are the things we can do.
And there's
But yeah.
even a line, it's like, it would take too long with axes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but what's the rush?
Yeah.
This
isn't like an archaeological. Yeah, this isn't an archaeological dig. This is this is so the military all over. Like, this is Michael Bay doing sort of archaeology. This is blow that shit up. Yeah. And then they find the body, and I like the fact that they're like, we're not doing that again. No thermite charges for the body. So they do break it out in a sort of a block of ice, take it back to the center, or to this Arctic sort of outpost that they've got, and then they're sort of like, they look at it and they can see it, it's this alien thing, and they're all like, oh, that's gross, but they're gonna watch it, and it thaws because someone can't spend the time looking at it, because it does make you feel funny things. So he covers it in a blanket, not realizing it's a hot blanket. It's literally an electric heated blanket, and it thaws the ice.
It is the dumbest.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if this were you'd write that in a sitcom.
Yes.
It's such a dumb thing, and you're like, again, but it checks out because these are idiots who just blew up a spaceship.
Yeah.
So of course they'd be like, "Hey-o," like it's weird. There's
Everything's
some weird
reactionary.
bits of, yeah.
Everything's so reactionary in this film that when they finally get the ice block to the outpost, they go into a storeroom, and the first question is there any way of decreasing the temperature in here? And they're like, oh no, it's a steady temperature. It's been designed for this, and this. And he's like, cool, smash out the windows. And you're just like, is there anybody? At no point does he say, is there anywhere else on this facility that we could keep this thing? He just
Like, I
smash
don't know,
the windows.
outside.
Yeah.
Here's a thought. Just put it right outside, because that's where it was, and it was fine. It's not going to get up and walk away.
No.
It's frozen. We had to drag it here. Let's leave it outside. Yeah, there's a lot. And again, that is interesting too, though, like the military incompetence. There's a conversation happening there. As well. This one takes place in the Arctic, not Antarctic, because it starts in Alaska.
Yes.
And I think, to me, so that is the Cold War thing, right? Because it's specifically there. Russia's right there. It needs to be closer to them. Like,
Yes.
right, it needs to be closer to Russia than the Antarctic is. So I feel like that was obviously intentional, as there's this bigger fear of this menace, and that, we got to move fast. Literally, the phrase "move fast to break things" could have been about the idiots in this movie.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that. Well, that's literally what they do. That's 100% what they do. So you've talked about Nikki, and I want to get to her in a moment.
Yeah.
But also the other character that I find interesting in this film is Dr. Carrington. Because we've talked about this thing about science and the military and all this other stuff. And he is, I won't say a mad scientist, but like he's verging on, like Prometheus level incompetence. Where he's just sort of like, this needs to be studied. We need to thaw it out and do this and do that. And it's like, this is a great knowledge. At one point, he actually says, like, knowledge, life is less important than knowledge. Like, he's willing to put people at risk for knowledge. And everyone's willing to, like, his whole team are just willing to go with him. He's like, we're going to do this and this. And you're like, hang on. Like, kind of dangerous.
And he's not, that's the thing. He's not a military scientist. He's scientist. He's Dr. Carrington, where it's Captain Hendry, and it's this, and it's Lieutenant this, and Lieutenant this. And it's McPherson instead of McCready in this one. And it's like, all these characters are there, Corporal Barnes, and obviously Nikki is a military person of some sort, but they don't say her name, they don't say her rank, but then there's also a nurse. So except for the nurse, everybody's military, and yet this guy, this Dr. Carrington, they're like, well, he said we needed to plant these things in this
Yeah.
greenhouse, so we did. You're like, but what? What? Why?
I love that.
Whose authority?
But like, there's a great moment in this when they're sort of describing what this alien is.
Yeah.
What this
It's a
creature
carrot.
is. It's a carrot.
brilliant.
It's vegetation, right? It's a vegetable. It's like basically it's a killer carrot, and I was thinking like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, that sort of thing. And I was like, okay. What's the best thing is he literally says like we are irrelevant to it. We are the
Right.
it sees us the same way that we see a food source, and then he decides to grow more of it.
What the fuck about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
No.
I don't understand. He's like, yeah, we are, and he gives this speech about it. It's not like you said. It's not like he's just like, I don't know. He's just like, yep, this is it. This is the whole thing, and then we should grow more.
Yeah. I mean,
What, really?
This is like Seymour Krelborn, Little Shop of Horrors level, like silly. You know, where he's sort of like, I'm
Right.
growing dangerous vegetables that we have to feed plasma to. He just like,
Just
hang
'cause.
on.
Yeah,
Just-
wait. Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
not good.
Yeah, but I loved it when they're like they do the carrot, and then again that goes back to the jokey nature. This, and again, like we were saying offline when we were texting each other, there's so many things that they choose to what each of the three movies chooses to borrow
Yes.
from the story, and it's the banter. Because in the second movie, none of them like
No.
each other. They're all at their rope, so there's nobody's having fun. I mean, their actors are having a ball and somebody gets lit on fire, but like nobody's having, like the characters aren't having fun. But even here, they're like super jokey and they're super randy. And, you know, Captain Henry is getting all handsy with Nikki and all of that. And there's still jokes. So it's like, that's the whole thing about like once he's a carrot, then they make a bunch of like rat-a-tat, you know,
That's
jokes.
Yeah, I agree. And I like, the thing is, I say that I like that rat-a-tat banter dialogue when they are sort of like at each other and stuff. I like that. That's a good. It works well.
And and that
builds-
pulled straight from the story. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that feels that I feel that is there. And it works that side. But yeah, the crazy science part is nuts.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. But again, of its time. This is the thing I want to say. Like each of these films is of its time. Because the thing we didn't mention about the book, which we sort of to start linking this in, is they've obviously had Blair off in his shack, which we will see in the 82 version. And much like in the 82 version, they crack it open and there's like all this contraptions in there. And he's got like not a spaceship, but it's like an anti-gravity unit and stuff. And they're going, there's a blue light coming from this. And they're like, that's nuclear. That's atomic. And you're going, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. 1938, they're like, we haven't cracked nuclear fusion yet. And you're going, yeah, that's evident from the way that you describe it.
Right, but this is post nuclear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So they now sort of they, instead of tracking the magnetism of the ship, they're tracking the nuclear reading of the ship. Like there's a difference. Right. But however, the science still is 1951 science.
It's like the one guy, he's just, I think it's the McCready, right? He's just looking at the thing, or the McPherson, and he's like, he's this close because there's a Geiger counter clicking.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, move. Like you know how far away it is.
That's it.
Move your ass.
That's it. Like, well, you're not having children anymore. That's solved. Like that's that done. But yeah, let's talk about Nikki, because she's the only sort of apart from the 2011 version, like she's the only sort of main female actress, or the main actress in this. And she's as you say, she's not just like a squeeze. She's not just a love interest. She is that.
He treats her. He wants to treat her like that, but she's not having it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he even sort of gives that sort of like banter. Like, I'll take you for a drink and all sort of stuff. And she's like, we went for a drink. You passed out.
Yeah, you suck. I'm not interested, pal. Yeah.
And so she's really sort of like, you know, I think she is just not so much an assistant, but she's linked with the Dr. Carrington. But she's in charge. Like people listen to her. She has a level of authority and agency in this. And yeah, they do sort of like, you know, there's this thing of protecting her, but at no point is she sort of like a damsel in distress. Really?
No. She is firmly in control of shit. Yeah.
And And so, yeah, I thought that was kind of, again, I'm watching this in like 1951 and going like, wow, okay, cool. Like, this isn't just a sort of, she's not just there to scream and run away and you know, all this other stuff. Like, she's actually sort of given quite a bit of agency. So that was quite interesting.
I really was, and you know, I really like it, and I think she's good. She didn't work very long. The actress, she's really good, and you know, and she's listed as top billing in this, and she's given something to do.
Yeah.
You know, like she is, and this is where that whole idea of character comes in. You could go one of two ways, and all the movies, well, three of the four things we'll be discussing today really get to know characters, and they do it in simple ways.
Yeah.
The Nikki character on the back of Margaret Sheridan's performance, because again, she's got agency, she's got stuff to do, and that's like the work is done off camera. We show up, she's there, she's in charge of this space. She's the office manager. They can't function without her.
Yes, she runs things. Like the scientists are all doing the science stuff. She's running the place. Like she's making sure.
So there's military people, there's a scientist, and there is Nikki. And I assume she's military. They don't call her by rank, but even if she isn't, even if she's civilian, they're fucked without her. And so
they respect her for it. Yeah.
They do. And I think that's great characterization. It tells you a lot about these people, and it tells you a lot about like why the captain would like her and think she's like, because you know, he's a captain and he's like, she's awesome. She's a boss. She's, you know, like I like that's attractive. And so and that's excellent character building stuff. It's not just like you said, it's almost like because the doctor is so one note mad scientist, you're like, but why? Like you understand in a few lines of dialogue, really well written, well acted dialogue, you understand who she is and what their relationship is. And then you're like, oh, by the way, crazy doctor over here who's cutting up Carrot Man and planting him in the backyard. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
That's it. Like she's giving it, you know, like proper you know, authentic acting. And he's in the back going, like, woohoo, chop things
I know,
up.
they're in different movies, but that is what is so really cool about it. And I think that's what makes it good. And I know Rhea said she finds it particularly this one boring. I think it held up really well.
It does.
I hadn't seen it in a while.
It does.
I really liked it. I think because it was on film. And listen, I am a grumpy old man sometimes. And when you see something on film, you're like, God, it looks so good. Well, 1951, it looks great.
It does. I watched like a restored version as well.
Yeah.
So it looked really crisp and clean. So it looked great.
Yeah.
And it sort of holds up. It's not one that's going to be my heavy rotation. Like,
sure.
And it's not because the actors. I think we'll get to the alien, the monster, is actually the weakest part.
It is
of this film because they're sort of once it sort of starts doing stuff, they're not entirely sure what to do with it. It almost feels like they've looked at the sort of the Universal monsters Frankenstein and gone, that's what we've
got a big tall actor. That's what it is. Yeah, 100%.
And that's it. And that's it. It's one note. It doesn't do anything. It runs off into the snow, gets attacked by dogs. We have a hand part where it's working, which is when they realize it's vegetation. And instead of saying like, you know, chloroplast or whatever, they go tree sap. It's tree sap. That's what they call it. It's tree sap, and you go like, no, it has a technical name. Like, it's not just sap. Like, this is ridiculous.
Do a little bit of research. Like you said, they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah,
read a book, you scientist. But the only thing I will give this film from a monster point of view, and again, this is the military, absolute military cock-ups that continues. They have this whole facility is wooden, right? And it's covered by metal and stuff, but it's got a wooden interior, yeah? And when it breaks through a door, their response is cover it in gasoline or cover it in...
And light it on fire.
Light it on fire. So there's a scene...
Unbelievable.
There's a scene which, from a stunt point of view, I was like, wow, that's really impressive. Like, they are... All those actors, this is before health and safety, right? All those actors...
100%.
Yeah.
Maybe she died from lung cancer in 1982. So it could have just been from this film.
From the asbestos that she breathed in from that mattress.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, because they cover her with the flaming mattress.
Yeah. Well, she gets covered with the mattress, and then the mattress catches fire. And you see
there.
Yeah, and it's only one of the other actors. It's on screen. One of the actors grabs it and hurls it away from her. So, yeah, it's amazing.
That was one take.
Yeah.
There's no way that's all one take.
they could not redo that shot because that place is on fire and those actors are in that fire, and the alien does a running full burn and then dives out a window into the snow.
Amazing.
And it's for about 5 minutes. I'm like, that's amazing. But all I'm thinking is, these soldiers, these military guys, I don't want them near anything. Like this is sort of like police academy level incompetence going on at this point.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's 100% true. It is. Again, it is two movies. It is again. Their people are having different performances. What I think holds up about, so it's not as good as the 82 one, which is,
oh god, no, yeah.
But what it does, the reason I think it holds up because it looks beautiful. Again, stunt work, practical effects. Again, dangerous practical effects. 100%. We're not going to pretend that that's not dangerous. I think she's really good. I think all the actors, even though they're playing crazy or whatever, they're good. They're you believe there's no like really awkward chemistry between them, which I feel that 2011 movie feels like we met yesterday and now we're making a movie together. So it feels like they're of a place. And again, because like they're moving from the Alaska Anchorage to the other place. So the group who are on the plane have a different set of friendships and they come here and they're but they know them. And so I just feel like there's a real sense of good chemistry, good acting, good shots. It's shot really well. It isn't perfect. It's not a perfect film. I can understand why I think it looks boring, but like technically it looks really good. And so I was just 1951 science fiction. I listen to you and Juliet all the time. There's some bad 1951 science fiction out there.
Yeah, the 50s wasn't all good. Yeah,
it was not. You guys did that whole season on there's a lot of shit.
Yes.
This like the ants one. What was that just called? Them. Yeah. I mean, okay. And then there's like just some. And not only was that, and I know that was another, one of the nuclear threat, but again, that wasn't shot very well. So there's just, and again, Hawks. This is a Hawks film, so of course it's going to look really good. He didn't make shit. He's so I don't know. I just want to me what holds up for it is just how good it looks, how well I think the actors acted, and it does hold up in places. It's not perfect.
No, I mean it's not a scary
plot
film.
Holes the size of a giant man jumping out of a window.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, they do beat it. That sort of is, that's and then our Scotty, our reporter, gets to release the story. And
what an ending that we're going to tell the world.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Well, one of the things that's interesting about this, because there's two parts to this ending I wanted to sort of touch on. Again, the military, like throughout it, they've had their senior officer, their sort of whoever it is, CO. has been radioing through with instructions like, don't hurt it till I get there. I want to see this. Like, keep it safe. Da, da, da. Which, again, is part of the original story. This idea of protecting it because it's, an alien and stuff. But then he's told he can't release the story because it's of national security and other stuff until they've given it the clearance. That sort of goes away. And at the end, he's just sort of like, come on then, boys. Time for a great story. And it ends with... he looks into the camera.
Right at you.
And it says, look to the skies. Look to the skies. And it's clear that this is, by the 40s and into the early 50s, we had like the UFO flaps and that UFO had been coined as a term and this other stuff. So flying saucers had been sort of identified in 1947. So this is sort of like, that thing of like, but as you say, although it's sort of, post-war and all this other stuff, now it's entering into the red era. It's still that sort of thing of look to the skies. There's things, there's we can't trust everything. But it's just a fun ending, but it is kind of silly.
It is. Again, it's two movies.
Yeah.
So plot-wise, it's a bit of a mess. But I just think that what I think holds up, I really had a fun time. There's something about the earnestness of it. You know what I mean? Like, they're really trying. They were really trying hard. And I don't know how long the shoot was or whatever. Back then movie shoots, a lot of times they you got we got 3 weeks. Let's get it. And it's not quite Ed Wood. You can only do it in one. But there's clearly like that whole fire scene. That was one take.
Oh, yeah. This was done in like 3 weeks. Like no more than that. Like this was bashed out like pretty quick.
But that's what I'm saying. So for all of that to say it holds up. I mean, to get those kinds of good shots, good actors, good chemistry, again, is that I can't imagine Scott, what it must have looked like in 1951 to see the monster.
Oh, I'm sure it'd have been effective at that time.
But
It's
we're
shot
like-
well. Like it's
It is, yeah.
because
It's
it's
shot
the way,
down here.
yeah,
and-
the way it's lit and the way it's shot, it looks good for the era. But like,
right.
it's but I couldn't get away from thinking Frankenstein.
No,
the
for
Universal.
sure. And that guy
Frankenstein
went on
monster.
to be on what, Gunsmoke or Bonanza
Yeah.
or what are they? Like he had a long career, that guy. So it's amazing because like a lot of the people who played the monsters, they didn't have good careers, but he did.
Yeah,
It didn't hurt him like with Bella and Boris. They
Karloff.
didn't really.
Yeah, it didn't
yeah.
really get sort of stereotyped or anything like that.
But he didn't, and I don't know, and maybe because this wasn't those things, it's not part of the Universal Monsters things,
Mm-hmm.
like because those guys were under contract with Universal, so like you're going to do this again, where
Yeah.
he just did this Hawks movie, and and he's a big, commanding guy, so him being in a Western on TV makes sense. He's a big presence. I can understand.
Oh,
why
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I enjoyed it. I understand it's not as good as the thing we'll talk about next.
No, well,
but I'm glad it exists.
Do you want to talk about the next two in? That's really, let's do the 82. Because I was going to say, do you want to talk about from prequel to do it in?
I
in
think
chronological, but-
2011 we're gonna have just a few things to say.
Yeah,
I mean, I've
okay.
got some things. It's not. Yeah, let's just
All right.
let's just go to.
Let's give
82.
1982 the time it deserves. So yeah, The Thing in 1982, directed by
So good.
John Carpenter, starring sort of Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, the great Keith
Who was
David.
48 years old, by the way.
Yeah, Wilford Brimley is one of these
What
people that's been
The
like
hell!
that's been 73 my entire life.
When I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh my god, he looks bad." How old was he when he died? And I was like, "Oh, he's 48. I'm
was-
50."
Yeah,
Scott,
he was 55 when he made Cocoon.
right? Jesus Christ!
Which is
But playing a
insane.
90, it is insane. Yeah,
He's been
So
playing.
I
Playing an
asked,
old
I asked
man.
Lee
He's
to
been
look it up.
playing-
I was like, "Look up." I go, "Lee, she's never seen this." I was like, "Type in Wilford Brimley the thing." So she types it. She looks, and she's like, "Yeah, there's Wilford Brimley." I'm like, "Okay, how old do you think he is there?" She's like, "A 60."
Yeah.
I was like, 48.
Yeah,
She's
the
51. I'm 50. We're
The
like,
guy's,
"Holy shit."
the guy's been playing 60-year-old since he was 25. That's
He
the
and
only-
Maggie Smith. Those are
Yeah,
like, right? Yeah.
just been old his entire
Just
life.
that's just it. They're good at it. They're good
Yeah.
actors. It's not like they're bad, but it's just funny to think like, oh man.
It is,
Anyway.
it's really funny. Anyway, yeah, a bunch of the we've got a bunch of the people that are really good. But basically in this one, it jumps as you said. The film opens. You do see it sort of. This is the thing. It's sort of you see an event, you see something come, but you don't know
Yeah.
when it is. That's the thing. Like there's
Right.
no sort of like
So
context of
smart.
time.
Yeah.
So you don't, so, and then you get to the Antarctic and it opens with, because I watch this in it's a 4K scan, but I've got it on Blu-ray and stuff, but I've got a 4K telly.
Mm.
This opening, all of this film looks fantastic, by the way. Like
It's
the
amazing.
restoration of this is phenomenal good. But that scene of the husky running across the snow with the helicopter, it is insanely good. Like it's stunning how good this thing looks. Yeah, but that's it. It starts with a husky being chased, being shot at as a helicopter sort of comes in, and then this husky runs into the camp. That is the American or I never did. Is it just solely American, or is it supposed to be like a?
I feel like it's supposed to be solely American. So
Yeah.
the idea is, and I actually know somebody who was stationed, again, students. I have students from
Yeah.
all, I had a student who was stationed in Antarctica. And the way that it is he was in the Navy and he took an Antarctica assignment because you get double time
Right.
or towards retirement. So you do 6 months down there, it counts as a year. So
Oh,
the
wow.
way he said, they're like that. He's like, it's like The Thing. And I'm like, what? But
Yeah.
there's tunnels.
Mm.
They're connected. So like certain countries are dry, air quotes. So like the people from the other country would come to the American base
Right.
through the tunnels because you could drink and then they would go through the tunnels back. So over time, no, I don't know if in 1982 the tunnels exist. Obviously they don't for the sake of this film. They have to fly by
Yeah.
helicopter. They did it's a totally different thing. But so yeah, each country has its own base and then you're connected through
Right.
tunnels or whatever. So they're all
Okay.
there. I don't think they're as spread out as obviously it appears in this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this is the American base and the Norwegians are chasing the dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the helicopter lands and they start opening fire and quickly.
That escalated quickly as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. The Americans fire back, and again, let's just talk about a couple of things on this. So they shoot the Norwegians. Gary just smashes a window, just starts firing. Fucking Gary.
Gary, in every iteration, Gary. Well, how are you in charge?
Yeah. Like there's a moment when he does it, and I'm like, you could have opened the window.
You
Like,
could
open
have
the door.
opened the door. What are you doing? You live here. It's fucking cold. What do you smell? I know. That's bad choices, Gary.
So yeah, so straight away we realise that Gary's an idiot. But they take in the dog. They sort of like, but they're very confused. They're like, well, what the hell are the Norwegians doing this thing? Why are they shooting at a husky? Like, you know, and so that they have, I forget, is it Clark? It is. It's Clark that takes it in, isn't it? So Clark takes it in, you know, treats it, make sure that it hasn't been shot, and sort of like gives it an examination. Stuff. And this is one of my favorite things when we talk about this, is that the dog then gets to roam around before it gets put with the other huskies. It gets to roam around, and there's like
the
a
greatest
montage.
animal acting in the history of dogs. That dog
shots.
is amazing.
It's like it's a montage, isn't it? It just sort of like watching the crew. Like you get it, but why it's so clever and why I think it's so brilliant is you sort of get introduced to everybody with the dog. Like
amazing. It's so good.
Yeah,
Carpenter is such a genius and
efficient.
That's it. He does not fuck around. But we've talked about him with They Live. He will spend. He does it here. He drops you in. Something crazy's going on. Now we're going to sit. We're just going to walk around with the dog. We're going to play. We're going to watch McCready dump scotch in the chess machine. What a dick move. Like you learn all these things about all these people. Keith David's there being awesome. You're like, oh, Keith David's in this movie. Excellent. Another man who's been that age forever. Whatever age he is here, he's still that age, 40. Just Keith David is permanently. Yeah, you're right. And he sits and he gives you that dog. And there's even like the most sort of both romantic and terrifying scene where the dog walks in and you just see the silhouette of the guy turn. You're like, what's happening?
This is one of those things. When I first watched this film, and I didn't really know. It's called The Thing, all right? You don't know what it's about. All right? I didn't really know anything. And so you're just like, oh, it's a dog. And even though, like, I didn't know that the dog was going to become an issue, the fact that the way it's shot and the using of light, like the dog always seems to come out the dark, like it's never well lit, like it's laying in the dark, it's laying in shadow or whatever, and then it walks into that room and you just see someone's shadow on the wall, and you don't know who it is, but like you're like, oh, that's weird, and it's not till later that you're like, oh shit. Like someone's already infected, like, and that's so good. Like you don't know unless you know. You don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like if the second time you watch it, the third time you watch it, you go like, I spend the time going, whose room is that? Like who is that?
Right?
Like, who is that? Yeah. Who was it? To say like, is it Clark? Is it these people? Like no, I don't know. It could be Keith David, and the whole thing's just him. You know,
could be McCready. You never see McCready take his own blood.
Yeah. So there's all these different ways that sort of, you know, these interesting things that sort of mysteries that are laid out. And then put it with the rest of the other dogs. And then, like you say, they go to visit.
Now it's Act 2 and shit goes crazy.
Yeah, well, they go to visit the Norwegian base.
Yeah.
McCready and I can't remember.
It's McCready and Cooper.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And so they just have a look around.
Dr. Copper.
Yeah,
Copper.
Copper. Yeah. And they have a look round, and they're the ones going like you see the set, you see the Norwegian base, like there's a big block of ice that's been smashed out, and the place is all sort of like messed up. Part of it's been scorched, and there's all this other stuff that's been gone on, and you've got like they're going, no, this place is a mess. Like we don't know what's happened here. This has all gone. Something's gone wrong here. In the meantime, you find out that you go back and you hear the noise. There's some of the sound effects, like the sound design in this film is brilliant. It's like the sort of almost the thing you'd associate with snakes, and all of a sudden, like these not even like tentacles, like vines, fleshy vines, lash out and get the other dogs, and you just sort of like it's creepy.
he is, well, I could talk about sound design because of course he writes his own music and he does
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And it does, his score does show up in those. Again, the best part of the next movie is the end credits, which are them recreating the opening credits of this. And they're like, we even use the sound. You're going to use Carpenter's sound,
Yeah.
which of course that's what the new Halloweens did. They're like, we better make sure we get John's score because what's the point of making Halloween without it? Oh, it's Rob Zombie. That's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
Those were so god awful. So, yeah, and so he knows, and again, it's these cuts. He knows when it's like you talk about efficient. He knows how much time to spend on it. He knows when to start doing the body horror and when to creep you out. He never like the dog scene goes on too long if you hadn't spent all this other time doing other stuff.
Yes.
Right? Like it could just be like this crazy cool thing I could do with practical effects, but it's like so terrifying. And you've been with the dog. The dog is your point of view character. The dog is the first character. Jed the dog. The dog. First character you see. He's the main character as far as you know for the first act. And then you see the shit go down, and it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's because he's given you all this time with it that you're panicked, and it's such a stark thing because it's this nature and it's outside, and that, like you said, that opening shot is amazing.
It's
and of course
amazing. Yeah.
and it's this like he set the tone, and then this horrible thing happens. And again, the sound design, he makes those sounds. You know,
But it's the natural noises, not just the music. It's the natural noises of the film.
Exactly.
Like, the sound of the ripping and the sort of like the noises the thing makes is
he's amazing.
Ugh.
It works perfectly because he knew when to do it. Just like everything, he paces everything just right. It's like he doesn't that scene goes on so long, but it works to terrify you.
Yeah.
Like he wants to make a body horror movie, and so the first thing he's going to do is kill the dog.
Yes.
You've invested for a half an hour of the dog. Everybody else is an asshole.
Well, that's the
only
difference.
Character you genuinely like is the dog, and then he fucking kills him. I mean, Clark is good. We like Clark the dog.
Clark's because he likes the dogs. Yeah,
Clark's
the dog handler. He likes the dogs.
And then this happens, and so it's like so good. It's like such great pacing, and then 5 minutes of horrible sounds. I could not imagine seeing this in the theater for the first. Again, Nights and Age 2.
What a year!
Like,
but this film flopped. I mean, this is one of those films that flopped.
It did flop. Yeah,
you know, like this is amazing. Like, why did this flop? It's the fact that, like you say, the this bit with the dog, and obviously, you know, we've talked about the people in the book, in the story, and in the 1951 version. We've talked about the banter. We've talked about sort of like there's an element of humor and sort of like the, you know, almost like a gee whiz element to it. That doesn't exist here. As you said, this is a really claustrophobic environment. Like this is incredibly small, but every corridor is really cramped. Every room is very small. They are definitely, there's just a lot less people. So it's only like there's 8-9 people, something like maybe less than that. 12 people. So it's a really small crew. And they're on top of each other still. And as you say, they've been there for a long while, and they are kind of sick of each other.
They are, and you feel it. And again, that is really good. The character building is really good. They're assholes. They hate each other.
They're bored.
You hate them. They're bored. They watched the game show. Simple thing. When Knowles is watching the game show, and they're getting stoned, right? He's sitting there. They're getting stoned, and nobody cares that they're just getting baked out of their mind, and they're like, "Oh, I know how this one ends." They're watching like "Let's Make a Deal," so they get up and watch something else. So they got record taped shows of like that's what was sent to them are taped game shows that they've already watched. They already know how it ends, and so that is like such great shorthand, great characterization. Like they're not talking to each other, they're not having a good time.
Like you say, McCready's up in his shack, sort of playing this chess machine that he hates, and that like all that's it's brilliant. I love the fact that like there's more because it adds to the paranoia. This is the thing that it adds to the paranoia because they already don't particularly like each other, and so to add to the paranoia, now all of a sudden, you know, they've got to work together. They don't like each other, but do they trust each other?
Yeah.
And so I think so it's just the characters of this are so good. I mean, you know. Again, like, you know, I know them all from different things, but this is just a perfect cast. Like it works incredibly well. Obviously, things sort of, as you say, escalate quickly or race through because it obviously gets to the bit where you go, like, who was who was infected, and it is Norris, isn't it? Sort of, what is it that comes out? And again, is it Norris that comes out? You see him walking across the snow and everything, and they sort of the first,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and again you get the noise and everything, and it's not quite
did he make
finished.
that noise? Did he do that?
I don't know. It feels like a sound design, quite possibly, but
It's
also
really good. It's
very well done. But he's not finished.
No.
He's not finished, and that's gross. Yeah. And so they this goes to and this because this film is
There's
just
a lot of flamethrowers laying around.
yeah I was just saying yeah
More
a lot of
than one.
flamethrowers, more than
They have
one.
more than one flamethrower. That's amazing. Get the flamethrower, and
Yeah.
that's like, and the line wasn't which one. It was just like go grab one. And I love though that like again John Carpenter. He's like you believe anything he does. So when Kurt Russell's in the flamethrower, they're like in a scuba suit.
Yeah.
But at least they were like trying to think about the science, like what would be flame retardant? A scuba suit, sure, a scuba suit
that'll
for
do.
flamethrowers. Yeah, and how did you have the time to get that on and the goggles and everything and get here? Somebody just had to be sitting. But yeah, there's definitely lots of actual fire, which again, health and safety
Less of an
in
issue.
charge, less of an issue, but still lighting people on
Yeah,
fire.
yeah.
And again, why this movie is so good because lots of
Practical
people are
effects.
lit on fire.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter's really good at it, and
All of a sudden,
gets-
he's sort of like, right, okay, and action, him, and him, go.
yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, and again, this movie, just like They Live, as we talked about before, what Carpenter does is he gives you acts.
Yeah.
He sets you up, he paces you, and then once you get to Act 2, it's fucking bananas.
Yeah.
And like Act 2 and Act 3 kind of are
Blend.
the same. Like are the same. Yeah.
But
It's
there's
hard-
there's an escalation. There's an escalation
Yes,
between
that's
2 and
true.
3. But one of the things I like with 2 is the second act. And this is one of the things why I love this film is because this film constantly keeps you on the back foot.
Yes. Yes.
Like you
Who
never
is it?
like who you're because even I've watched this a number of times, and even still now I'm like, it's not a passive film. I can't just sit and I can't be on my phone. I can't get involved because I know the ending, but I'm like,
But
who
do
is it?
you?
Who is it?
This is the thing.
Whoa.
Who is it? I'm still 100% convinced that the reason McCready gives Childs the bottle at the end is because McCready's the thing and he's infecting him.
That's what I think. I've always ever since I sort of read something about that, I was like, that makes total sense. Like,
I think
that
it
works.
every time, and there was nothing. And this time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
And all it is McCready says, "I know I'm human," and you're like, "Oh, okay." Why?
Yeah.
Nobody's like, well, I mean, and they're all pissing and they're on each. And again, the reason that the claustrophobia and everything works, so that later when they're all at each other's throats, you totally believe that they would turn on each other because they're not friends. Whereas in the 51, they're still like, hey, and in the book, they're still jokey banter while shit's going crazy.
They're all buddies
because they're
yeah.
pals. These guys fucking hate each other.
Yeah,
They're
really
so
do.
done. They're
Yeah.
so, I fucking hate you. I never want to see you again. I fucking hate your guts.
Yeah,
And-
if they'd have survived this, there wouldn't be sort of like, Class of 82 reunion 10
No,
years
they
later.
That's exactly right. Oh my God, that's so true. So I hear what you're saying, and it does. And in addition to it, keeps you on the back foot. What Carpenter continues to do with, like, first he gives you the dog. That's the first body horror, and then he lights people on fire, and then there's more. Like then this fucking thing breaks off. The arm breaks off.
That's what I mean.
It
Well, this
becomes
is
a
it.
bug. You're like,
This
what the
is-
fuck is going on?
Well, that scene that's what I'm saying about the back foot, because you again, like,
Yeah.
you've had that, you go, well, they've just set a person on fire, like, that you're going to get a breather, and so they then sat around examining the body, and you're going like, oh, it's an autopsy, and you feel that this is going to be as a sort of more, I don't know, let's say sophisticated or sort of knowledgeable film viewer, you go, oh, this is the exposition film. This is the exposition scene. This is where they're going to explain stuff, and it sort of goes there, and then all of a sudden the chest opens up and it bites the arms off Dr. Cooper or Dr. Copper, and
Bites
you're
his
just like,
arms off.
and he's got these two like bloody stumps and everything, and then because they set it on fire, the head detaches. And it literally like tears itself off and grows legs, which goes back to this thing we said about in the story, about it having a memory about what
Yeah.
it was copied in the past, so that it can do these things to survive. It becomes like an upside down head spider crab thing and scuttles
Amazing.
off, and all practical or sort of, and it is so incredibly well done. And you're just like, Jesus, what the fuck? Like, again.
It is spectacularly done. Yeah, because once you go to the second act, it is relentless.
Yeah.
And he is at you, and I mean, Halloween is great, but it's really slow. It stays slow, right? But that's
Halloween is the
intentional.
opposite. Halloween is the counter to this.
Correct. And it's made by the same guy, but he knows what he's doing. He's playing
Yes.
with you. But both movies are so rewatchable because you're looking like he's lulling you to sleep. And then he's, like, oh, PJ Souls is going to take a shirt off. And then you're like distracted by what's happening in the background. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to make a movie, right?
Yep.
He's no joke. And then you get to this movie and it's like you're so exhausted in both ways. He exhausts you so that he's like, you're going to have to watch that again. Like it's genius. It's genius. You make money by rewatch.
Oh, yeah.
1982, there was no VHS yet. I mean, very few people had it. So, you know how he was going to make his money? You were going to go see it again. And how anybody who saw this, who likes this kind of movie, how could you not want to go see it again? Because you missed half of it.
Yeah. Because you're
amazing.
Yeah, eyes behind your hands. I still don't understand how this film flopped. Like, I don't
either.
I physically can't wrap my head around the idea that this film didn't do well. Because you watch it, you're like, this is a masterpiece. This is an incredibly good film. It does escalate. The other thing is you said about the ever-aged Wilford Brimley is playing Blair. He's already gone off. Like, there's a great moment where he's the one that's done the calculation of like, well, if this thing spreads, like, how quickly does it spread? And he's figured out like, if this thing leaves, it's like within a year, like kind of thing. Like this is done. Like
world's over. Earth is done.
Yeah. And so he's the one that goes out and rips out all the sort of like the engine parts and stuff and starts to lock himself away.
Yeah,
he's gone crazy.
He doesn't want anybody to leave. But that's the trick. So it's between then and the end when they lock him in McCready's house, McCready's shed, because by then he's infected. By then he's the thing, because then he tunnels under and he's taking all the parts that
to
he
make a
tore
spaceship
apart to build the new spaceship. But he had a way off before. So when he destroyed it, he was literally trying to save it. And that's where you're saying not only, and this goes back to the original story, which I obviously didn't know because I didn't read it till this time, is that there's this argument in the original story that the thing absorbs what you know.
Yes.
So it knows what Blair did and it knows what Blair is capable of. And that while he's the biologist, he's also clearly very mechanical. So he's the one to take over, even though Childs is the mechanic.
Yes.
He's not a builder. He's not thinking. And that's again, excellent filmmaking. You see Blair, he does the math. He's got it all figured out. So of course, that's who the thing needs to get. The guy who you did this for me. Thanks.
But you never know when. That's what I love.
You don't know when.
Because for them, they're like, we locked him. He's gone insane. And he's telling them to fuck off. He's like, leave me alone, monsters and all this other stuff. Apart from the only one he seems to trust is McCready. Like, there's a point where he sort of speaks to McCready and is like, keep your eyes peeled, and he locks himself away. And then you're like, okay, well, he's definitely human at that point. When and who changed him? Did he get past food? Did someone go in there? What happened? How did he get infected? And it's never really clear. This is what I love this film. It's ambiguous. There's loads of things where you're like, shit went on in the background that you never see. Like, you are given a part of the story. Which is what keeps you on the back foot. And it does, anyway, it escalates further. Like, people start getting more and more paranoid. And then it goes to, and this one we didn't talk about I didn't want to mention it in the story because it's here, possibly one of the most famous scenes. And it's in the book, is this thing of, because in the book they try to have a different test. They do a test with serum and this weird thing about animals being
the
human
animal,
immune,
the rabbit, and it was already infected. That was a lot of hand wavy science. You don't try that hard if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a lot of like, this animal is human immune, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I'm gonna just go with it, but like, fine.
Sure.
But it gets through to the final thing of the realization that every cell is an individual thing working together with all the other cells rather than it being a holistic organism. So if you take some blood, that blood then becomes an individual section of entities. And if you try to burn that blood, it'll react.
Right.
And so we get the scene then where they do have they're all tied up. Like, McCready's going like this. I love the fact that McCready's just not only is it that he's human, he's like, yeah, but I got the flamethrower. So
right.
So fuck off.
Fuck right off.
I'm
Yeah.
doing this because I'm the one with the flamethrower. So
Right.
we're doing it. So yeah, so they did the thing. They cut the thumbs. They take the blood, and they got him in the petri
It's a
dish.
lot of blood, by the way.
It is quite a lot of blood.
Holy shit, that's a lot of blood they pour in there. Like at some point,
Yeah.
somebody should have been like, John, I don't think they would have poured that much blood. He's like, it'll look cool though. For
Yes.
this cool effect to work later, it needs to be this much blood. You're like,
Yes.
okay, we trust you, John.
Go with it. Everyone's gonna get a cookie after, like, you know, no one's
You'll be fine.
one's short. But they do. They've all taken blood, and they've got it in these petri dishes, and he does. I think Niles first or Clark or whatever. He does one of them first, and then they're fine. You hear the tss,
Yeah.
the
so good.
scream,
Yeah.
and it's the sort of the hissing as it goes into the blood. He's fine, doesn't react, and then it's not Gary at first. I forget whose it is he does. He does someone's own. As it gets in, you hear the hiss, and all of a sudden it just erupts.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
Yeah, and the thing comes out of this blood, and then all of a sudden the person he's taking it from on the sofa that's tied to starts sort of like shaking and stuff. And Gary's going like, get me off this sofa. It's brilliant. Like, it's chaos.
So good.
It's
is total chaos. Because they've tied, and again, it goes back to the claustrophobia. They're all tied to this couch together. And then as the one gets busted, and it's the kid it's the guy who's getting stoned with the cook. It's not whatever. Why can't I think of who it is? It must be
Palmer.
Okay, Palmer. Right. Okay. So as he turns, yeah, you're right. It's Palmer. So as he turns, and Gary's right there, and Childs is right there. They're all tied together, and it's like freaking out, and he's splitting apart, and it's like such a good scene. So it just ties in with the claustrophobia, and these guys are fucking sick of each other, and they're tied, sitting right next to each other, and they can't get away from each other. And then it's like, and then it goes like full on alien,
yeah. And then it
crazy
becomes
shit.
Yeah, that's what becomes Alien, basically. Like, we're going to hunt this thing down. We've got flamethrowers and dynamite, and basically we're going to burn this motherfucker to the ground. That's
the only option, right?
Yeah.
Is to burn it to the ground. And I think that's their decision, is like they make the decision, like, we're going to have to die.
Oh, yeah, this is a suicide mission. Like, the end of this
At that point, yeah.
It's they all know that there's no escaping this, but they can't let it out. Like, you know, and I think it's really when they see Blair's hut, that's what really
when they
nails
know.
it.
Yeah.
Because Blair's they go to tell Blair what's happened. This is what they're going to try and do, and then they see that he's not
there.
No longer. He's not there. But they find he's dug down and he's making this spacecraft out of all the parts of all the other bits and pieces. They're like, okay, if we don't do something now, this thing's getting out of here, and we can't afford to do that. So they do, despite hating each other, they sort of agree that this is how it's got to end. And it's pretty dramatic. I mean, it goes up to like this big explosions and fire and
this time the explosion of the spaceship is intentional.
yes.
They're like,
Yes.
let's blow this up on purpose. And you're like,
Yes.
oh, okay, yes, let's do that. Actually, that's a very good idea.
Yeah, no military here, just sensible people. Like,
right,
you know.
doing practical effects again, probably unsafe in some ways. I mean, I still think like his most unsafe movie is Christine. Right? I mean,
Quite
I still
possibly.
feel like
Yeah.
he hits people with cars and shit in that one, but like, and that was after this. That's a couple years after this. But yeah, I know. I do think it's a great shot. And again, he knows how to. He puts him underground. He's going to blow shit up. There's really actors there and stuntmen running. And it looks great. In 1982, there's just hardly any films that look this good. Still, they just don't make movies like this.
It's
And we're
just-
just not
it's just
being
shot.
grumpy old men. It's just so good.
It does. It's on film. It's been shot well to capture. You know, it's one of those things where he's one of those directors that understands light and shadow to create not just an environment, but like a tactile environment where you sort of like, even when the thing's on fire towards the end and it's all come around, like you still go like, oh yeah, like this is like a rabbit warren. It's small and there are tight corridors and there's stuff in the way, and it's not good.
It's not good.
This
It's
is a
not good at
dangerous.
all.
This is a dangerous place to be. Like,
Yeah.
even at the best of times, this is somewhere you've got to be very careful. Like,
Yeah.
um,
And that sense of smell from the story carries over here. You've got dogs, you've got sweaty, gross dudes. They smell like, I mean, McCready's got to be like sweating scotch. You got whatever
Yeah.
Brimley
Whatever,
smells
whatever's
like.
living in his beard. Like, I don't
Right.
know. Like,
That beard is glorious. It's unbelievable. And to see young Wyatt when he has the beard in some things, it's crazy how
Yes.
much young Wyatt looks like him. And not that he's young anymore, but like, you know what I mean? And so, oh my God, it's so good. It is just, I mean, I could just wax poetic about it. And I know but the reason I think it works is so 38, you have this conversation about the threat of Nazism. 51,
Yeah.
it's Cold War. But 82, we now get a better sense. It's Star Wars. It's not like Star Wars the movie, but like Star Wars this, like now it's nuclear war. It's not just Cold War. By 82,
global threat.
global threats. We are pointing weapons at each other and we're going to destroy everything. So each of these three movies, each of the story, movie 1, movie 2, was commenting on everything. And that's the thing. Part of the problem, one of the many problems with the 2011, it has nothing to say.
If this film, if the 2011 version was made now, post COVID, it would have a whole.
Plenty to say.
Yeah.
Right. But it doesn't have anything to say. Every movie is talking about, it's like we were saying off, it's of its time. And that's what I wrote down in my notes. And that's just funny. That's what we were talking about before we started talking. Is like, and so 38, 51, 82, it's commenting on the thing. Nuclear war is real. We've got, Thatcherism is on the rise. Reagan is there. We've got the real threat of the Russians. 51, Cold War isn't nuclear. I mean, the nuclear threat is real, but it wasn't like everybody didn't have weapons pointed at each other in the same way. And there's like 3 weapons. But by 82, more than just 2 countries have them. Shit's gone rogue. Everything's bad. Like there's like loose nukes. I mean, it's crazy shit is happening. So it's unpredictable. And you know what we can't let get out? We can't let those secrets get out. What countries are going to get them? And not that we were worried about Norway. They don't want them. But you know what it's like? Who's going to get them? Who's going to get the nuclear codes? Who's going to get so there's this like total fear and paranoia, and it plays into all 3 of these things. And then you get to 2011 and you're like, let's make it because we can.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
there's no purpose.
No, the difference between, I mean, the I can understand why they didn't try to remake 1982. As you say, you don't remake a classic like that. No. But one of the things I find that's interesting is they have like this key parts. It's one of those things, and this is a thing with the prequel. They always sort of go, okay, well, here's the things we've got to hit. Like, here's the things we've got to do. Luckily, the time frame is different, and because they walked around the Norwegian base,
right?
You get the things. There's the frozen guy in the chair. There's the broken out ice. There's the wreckage.
Face together. Yeah,
yeah. You get those bits, and you go, okay, we've got to present those. Like we've got to address those things, right? So key factor there. We've got to have those milestones in the film. All right, cool. But that seems to be it. It's set
it's set in 1982. I don't care about any of these people.
No.
We try to care about Joel Edgerton's character because he asks Kate, Mary Elizabeth's character, about the Cavaliers, and she's like, I don't follow football, and he's like, it's basketball. That's it. That's the only remote character building, and then you're just like, this guy's a dick for no reason, and this guy's a bootlicker for no reason, and this guy is the token black friend for no reason. It's so bad.
But it's even I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think she's
great, of course.
But no, in this, like, she's fine. But again, this is supposed to be 1982, right? Because it's supposed to be a prequel. This is a direct prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing. And I'm not to be sort of, misogynist or sexist, but I'm still going like, how is there she's supposed to be like, I don't know, her late 20s? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm going, how is there this is the only specialist in frozen biology that you can get? This seems you'd surely be going for some old man in his 50s.
100%. Yeah.
Not so
much.
much.
There's not a line. They didn't write a line to be like, oh, because your mentor or whatever, like just do a Marion Raven.
Because your PhD was in Arctic, fauna or whatever.
Right. One line. Right.
Like she's just it's just like, no, we've chosen her. And he's like, I don't know why. But then, like you say, she ends up being in charge. And there's even a line later on where they're like, so she's in charge now. So she's in charge. And everyone sort of goes, yeah. And you're going, and I'm going, why?
Right. Because there's when she calls the Halverson guy, the leader, she calls him out in front of everybody and he dresses her down. And again, I get it. I understand. I'm here for that scene. It's just paying homage to the Hawks movie because they're
Yes.
like, there is a woman in charge, but you get why she's in charge. That is explained. You get why Nikki's in charge.
Yes.
Why is Kate in charge? Why is
No
it
idea.
Kate? There's not a line. It's just like she's working. You've got 24 hours. You've got 2 minutes to decide that you're going to fly to Antarctica. I guess I don't have a choice, do I, boss? And off she goes. What the fuck is going on? And she doesn't, there's no chemistry there. And again, Joel Edgerson's a fine actor. It's not like these are bad actors.
The cast
Just
is good.
this-
It's just
I didn't believe that and again, they don't know each other. That's part of the problem. It's like and the guy, Joel Edgerton, and the guy who plays his Paul Brunstein, I don't believe that they're friends. I don't believe that they are these guys that you pretending they are. Where like in the 51 Hawks one, when they're all on the plane together, hey, you want some coffee? And you're drinking an open cup of coffee on a bi-wing, on a on an airplane that's just got propellers, bi-propellers. I don't think that's a good idea. But like they do those little things like, hey, who wants some coffee? Go wake this guy up. Boo. And this doesn't have any of that. I feel like they were like, you know what?
It's
Let's
kind
make
of
a
dour.
prequel that nobody wants.
Yeah, 100%.
But let's make it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of dour in that respect. Like, it's just there to answer questions to a story that we didn't need the questions answered. You're going, oh, this is what happened in the Norwegian base.
But
and you go,
we
like,
know.
Cool, but I've already seen the end result.
Yeah, we don't need it. Yeah.
I watched these the other way around.
Oh, okay.
So I watched the 2011 version first, or the 2011 prequel first, before the 82 version. Think like, okay,
this time you did.
This time, like, to say, like, does it work?
Okay.
Say, like, does it follow through to sort of like, and does it help the 2011 version? It does not. If anything, it makes everything you watch in the 2011 version worse.
Really?
Because what I found was you're watching this film where I've got like a suitably good cast, because I'm watching it and going like, I like all the people in this, that they're all perfectly fine in the 2011 version, but like I don't feel the tension, I don't feel there's the paranoia, but it all feels a little bit manufactured, and the special effects are clearly sort of 2011 CGI is still fine, it's good in many places. I like this thing about them, it's not able to manufacture synthetics, so she finds the fillings and there's all this other stuff, and that, when the person's being digested, like his metal hip plate has been pushed out, so all that's good, like that's good idea stuff. I'm going, okay, cool, that helps. So all that bit where she's like flashing in people's mouth to see the fillings and stuff, I'm like, okay, that kind of works. It's not quite as tense as
the blood test,
although I think they think it is. And then you watch the 82 version and you go, oh no, this is amazingly engrossing. It's one of those things where, like, when you watch to the end of this film, all right, because I've watched through the film and I'm like, yeah, it's good. All right, fine. And as you said, it ends with, there's a post-credit scene where they haven't responded to some messages, so a helicopter's flown in to check on them.
Right.
And one guy comes out and they're chasing a husky that he believes is infected, which he is infected. And as you say, all of a sudden the 82 music starts.
Like, and that's so good. Yeah.
And they take off, and I'm going like, oh yeah, shit, I get to watch that. I'm going to watch the 82 version next. Wicked.
Yeah.
And that's all it makes me think is I've had to watch this, but all I want to watch is the 1982 version. And then you watch it and you go, it is so many leagues ahead of it in filmmaking, in use of sort of environment and all this other stuff. I'm just like, yeah, it's crap. It's a good enough film, but that's it. It's good enough to fill the gaps, but like that's it.
Here's the thing. So that is exactly right. So I messaged you and said there's 70% of the 2011 film that you can save. There's a line about there being a Russian camp.
Yes.
Okay. So now you can play into this can't get into the hands of the Russians, whatever. So instead of making it a prequel, if you're like, let's make it a direct sequel. Let's make the direct sequel where those the helicopter, you can drop line it where the helicopter pilot comes in, right? From that the Norwegians called, whatever. Because we know we don't care. Blah, 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 blah. They got to call out before the storm. The storm is over. Yeah. The storm is the big haunting thing over everything, over the story, over the movies, both movies. This big storm is coming. So the storm is cleared. You land, the helicopter lands, the opening scene of Thing 2011 is you land and you see the burned out Thing, and there's a frozen dead MacReady, frozen dead, or you only see one body. You don't know. They're like, oh, we got to take this. They find same kind of thing. They find the Thing. They take it back to the Russian base, or it's the Russians, or whatever. You start in the Russian base. They're like, oh, we can't get hold of the Americans or whatever. So they go, they check. Then you get Kate. You get her in, you bring Mary Elizabeth in, then you tell the rest of the movie. You need a different introduction. And then it can still, because the way that Kate's character ends, you don't see her die. She's kind of stuck there in some weird, that's the worst CGI with that big, when I hated that whole part when she's in the underground is the worst part. And it's so good in the other two movies. It's like so poor. But all of that to say, you can cut that part, or even if you still want to end with that, but that end with her just alone in the truck when she figures out that Joel Edgerton's character, because the earring didn't go back. You can do everything the same, but you just take the 30% that you're trying so hard to make it be a prequel, and you say, let's make a direct sequel. I don't want to remake the Thing, but there is an interesting story there because we have the line about the Russian base. So that's it. We know there's going to be more than the Norwegians and the Americans there. You can make it interesting. And in 2011, okay, so you make it whatever country, it's the Chinese base.
Yeah.
Then you can make it, you know what I mean? There's something there, and especially by bringing an American in, and there's Chinese people and that tension between America and China, there's a story there, but they just
you need a time
in the bed.
You need to be. It needs to be a time in history that has something to say, as we've said. Like this, you know, the story had the rise of fascism and sort of like the strong man in Europe and the worry, the fear there. 51 is the start of the Cold War, and that idea of sort of like the Red Fear, the Red Menace, sort of growing. Is there? It's clearly in the film, in bits and pieces, that beware, look to the skies, but also just that sort of the other thing is out there as well as the science bit. But 82, as you said, sort of like there's that paranoia and the fear of sort of again nuclear war, this global threat. If you were to make it now, post COVID, if anything, like the sequel I would make would be twofold. So I would do a direct sequel, but it would be set now.
Ooh.
And it would be because you could do the post-COVID thing, that sort of thing, and I'd cover off things like quarantine, this idea of sovereignty, individual sovereignty, and you don't have the right to lock me away, and all this other shit. The stupid, this is a conspiracy. That's what I would start it with. I would have an Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos type, who has this place has been quarantined since 82. And because a message did get out, Blair or one of them finally get a message. We don't know that, but got a message out that basically said, place is infected. We've had to tear it. This is been a suicide mission. We've had to do that. But it's always been this conspiracy, right? No one's been able to get close to it. It's all part of like the flat earthers and all this other shit. And then all of a sudden, this super rich person sets out on an expedition and has paid people off and gets to it. And you find these two frozen bodies.
I'm here for it. Sold. Let's make that one. That's better. I like that. And again,
and then you can deal with
be in this, right? I like that. And then you're not stuck with the 1982 technology either.
No, you've brought all the modern stuff in.
Right.
But then it makes it worse because now you're like, we've got full communication. We're taking photos. This is about busting the conspiracy. The world's going to be made aware of it. If they are aware of it, what do they do with it? But then you've got this thing of like, now the world knows this is here. How do we stop people coming to it? We've got to quarantine people. It's this idea of, do we really listen to this? This is another idiot that sort of, rich idiot has gone on and done an expedition that. What right do they have to do this stuff? Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I know those guys. Yeah.
Just because they're the money techno whiz, why does that give them the right to do this stuff? Like you could cover all it. I think you could make it a really relevant 2024, 2025 thing where you're actually going like, the thing in each one of these stories is different.
Yeah.
And
the title, right? And the title of the full novel is called Frozen Hell. So you call it that. The problem too. And Kyle Stuke, the Night Shift host, and he and I've talked about this all the time. It's like, well, you're going to do a requel or whatever, and you call it the same thing. Don't do that.
I hate that.
That always hurts the film
Yes.
Even if it is a decent film, don't do that. Give it something else. So like this direct sequel to the Thing, Frozen Hell, whatever. You don't even need to call it The Thing 2, Return of the Thing.
Well,
Search for the Thing, whatever.
Call it just The Thing, semicolon, Frozen Hell.
There you go. The end.
Yeah.
You got to do that, and that also hurt this movie. This movie had 0% chance of being successful, even if it were awesome, which it isn't, because you just called it The Thing. There were people who I guarantee didn't see it because they were like,
just a remake.
Why would you remake? Why would you remake that movie? Don't do that. That's really dumb. And then you like think of it, and I know there were people and who hate it, who wouldn't go see the original The Thing, the 1982 version, because they're like, why would you shit all over Hawk's movie?
Yeah.
Hawk's movie's really good. And I think you look at it because Carpenter's like, Carpenter was paying homage to Hawk and was like, Hawks, here's what I could do different, better, more unique. What can I do to enhance the story? What was in the original? He paid homage to the story and the original film, where the 2011 film was just like, it'd be cool.
Yeah. Two bros.
Like, that's all it is. It's like, we've got some money to burn. And what makes me so mad, Scott, and I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I'm just going to do a quick rant about waste of money. It gets so pissed. Like, there's really excellent filmmakers who do excellent work with almost nothing. And so the money that they wasted on The Thing 2011 could have probably financed 6 indie horror movies. Like, even if they're not horror movies, just like 6 really good, thoughtful, character-driven. Like, I love a good lo-fi sci-fi where it's like, there's this great movie called Convergence with Xander from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Amanda from the Highlander series. They're in it together, and it's like this weird, right? And they're in this weird lo-fi. There's no real science fiction. They just talk about it, but you're like, ooh, it's multiple dimensions. It's time. We're playing with time and dimension. You don't see any of The Thing. They just talk about it, and the characters are playing different versions of themselves. It's fucking amazing. The whole thing was probably made for like a nickel. It's really good. It's not perfect, but it's really good. You could have made 20 more of those movies. Instead, you made this. So it's like, what is the purpose other than to light money on fire? And when I see shitty movies that were such a waste of money, and I know people in the film industry who aren't getting their movies made.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's just...
It's IP. This is the thing. I mean, the thing is, it's not about the film, it's about the IP, isn't it? This is where, like, we could get The Thing out there. We can do a film called The Thing. That was the key. That was the sell. That was the pitch. Who's in it? Oh, here's some of the names that we know people know right now. Here's the hot young talent that's in this film. That was what sold this film. No one gave a shit about it being The Thing. They were just like... And in fact, they probably called it a thing because people were like, oh, they'll remember the John Carpenter one. Like, they have...
But they'll remember how good it is.
Which is exactly, unfortunately, what this film does. Like, I watch this film and you get to the end and you're like, oh, yeah, brilliant. I get to watch the next one.
That's amazing.
So that's the problem with it. I do think that there are certain films, they often say, don't remake great films, make crap films that you could make great, right? And
exactly.
I 100% agree with that. However, I think there are films that you can remake and you can adapt to the times, and I think represent the times in a better way.
Sure.
I think the one film I would love to see remade, and I think is ready to be remade, and is actually in this book, maybe one day we'll get around to that, is The Fly.
Oh, you'd redo the Cronenberg one?
I would 100% do the read. I love the Cronenberg one. I think that is possibly
so good.
It's an amazing film. We did it on Stories at
You did. You guys did. That was one of my favorite episodes. Listen to you guys. I love that movie so much. Yeah.
But it's one where you go, okay, that's one where it talks about technology. It talks, you have the sort of like Jeff Goldblum playing. All right, cool. Let's see how you could do it in a world now that is we are beyond genetic engineering. We're doing all kinds of things.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. All right. That would be good. Yeah, because
it's instead of remaking Frankenstein and trying to address that, which I think seems to be sort of making its way back with, was it Lisa Frankenstein or these other films that have been no, remake The Fly, 21st century. Like, don't try and redo Jeff Goldblum's performance. Don't, you haven't got to have a gawky person playing Seth Brundle or anything like that, because that's not the name of the character. You could even go back and reintroduce elements of the story about how he kills himself and sort of stuff. But I just think with 21st century now, we're in a position where you can go, I can tell that story very differently, and it can hit in a different way.
All right. No, I hear that. I hear what you're saying. I agree. I think you don't again, I mean, and I do think like what we talked about, I like the Stath's death race. I still prefer the, I mean, like just Corman's death race is just so important to my childhood.
It's just so Corman. Yeah.
It is. It's, but, and I just love Corman. Like I get what he is. I'm all about that guy. But I do think like that one, you're like, okay, well, look what we can do. I mean, it did lack because it was, it was a little more claustrophobic as we've discussed. So yeah, this 2011 one, I feel like we have given that thing as much time as it deserves.
I agree.
I think you need to be hired to write the 20. And again, there is, according to the internet, which is never wrong. Carpenter does have the rights back to Frozen Hell, and that he is working on possibly a direct sequel. Whether that means it's your direct sequel or the direct sequel, we'll see.
I love John Carpenter. I have got all of his films on Blu-ray or DVD. However, I will admit, he's probably reached a bit of a wall. I wouldn't say he should be doing any more now, but that's the thing.
But maybe he produce it. You know what I mean?
Produce it like in the same way with Halloween.
It's him and Jason Blum, right? Yeah. If they want to come in and then have, and as long 100%. As he can still write the music and they get to handle the thing score, I'm here for it. Yeah, and you could even get, like, there's a if he owns it again, that just gives me hope that it won't
suck.
That's it.
And on that note,
what's next?
We've done it. We got to the biggie.
This Island Earth.
Oh. Yes.
I'm so excited. That is, it's really not good, Scott. I don't know why I like it so much. It's so absurd, and I really do think because of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie, they did This Island Earth. Like their one foray into like the last thing Joel did before the reboot and when he went on tour. The very last one with the original cast was This Island Earth, and it is glorious. I love what they did. I love the movie, or that. I guess Mike is still in the movie. It's just really good. So I'm excited. And the film in of itself, I'd seen the film before I saw that one. It's kind of one of those ones where it's like, I don't know what I like more, the actual movie for how stupid it is, or the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version.
But what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
We shall see. But this is a proper novella, 120 pages long, so we'll lots of stuff to do. So we'll get to that in very quick due course. But for now, anyway, let's wrap up. We are done for time.
Yeah.
So Tony, where can people find you and all the things you do?
Yes, the best place to go is to just go to arfarina.com. That's my website. And that gets you links to all the good stuff. My book, Welcome to Mansfield, the audiobook, as read by Ada McCartney, is out now. There's links to a couple of books I've written with, or where I've contributed essays that were edited by Mr. Scott Riley from Sequart. And you can get just links to all my stories, all my stuff, podcast. We just did Comics Motion 1000 just came out. Jack and I are in the middle of doing Justified, and so we're going to get season 2 of Justified soon. And then Heath and I are doing this show where it's like, Heath's one of my oldest friends. We late at night for 45 minutes because that's just the time zones. We talk for like 45 minutes about whatever. So that's been fun. Yeah. And then Jack and I are going to do Phillips Brubaker, Criminal.
Oh yeah, he told me about that. Yeah, he's working with it.
Yeah, so those are so good. So that's what I'm up to. What about you? And I hear you are also maybe the editor of some books that I've contributed to. You guys have a book coming out too.
We do. Yeah, there's some others. So there's books to go find. Judging Dread, which you contributed to. Waxing and Waning, essays on Moon Knight, which you also contributed to. They are both on Amazon, Sequart, and all those kinds of different wonderful places. Links on 20thCenturyGeek.com. But also, for Stories Out Time and Space, Julian and I are working on a bunch of essays at the moment. We're doing one, and other stuff we're working on. We've got obviously Stories Out Time and Space. We're just getting towards the end now of Black Mirror, and we're going to be going into in April. We've got our new season coming out, and it's going to be post-apocalyptics films, and we're going to be doing the Mad Max films, and we're going to be leading into Furiosa. So, that'd be great. In addition to that, just go find out everything else I do. Just go look at 20th Century Geek.
The Kurosawa stuff.
The Kurosawa things we're just editing at the moment, taking a little bit of time. But that'll be done soon. And that's going to be going to a Kickstarter. So, and be available. Some will be available on Patreon as well. So there'll be all kinds of bits and pieces. Nice. Lots of things going on. Anyway, for now though, thank you so much, Tony. This story time has been fantastic. And we'll be back for This Island Earth soon enough. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we shall see you again soon.